The major issue is, um, lifestyle, accountability, things like that. We can't concentrate on those things and trying to help people be closer to Christ when we're dibbling on little silly things like this. For someone who still wants to hold to it, it's interesting. I had actually had a conversation with someone when this was all going on that was a little more. They were really hard pressing the whole "you need to go to the building" thing when it first came out. But I had a conversation with him when I was able to explain exactly what we've talked about here today, and he was encouraged because he had never heard it like that, and I was encouraged because he was receptive to it. So when you talk about spiritual nuances, you just have to be confident and be able to contend for the faith and understand the word yourself well enough to even convince somebody who also studies the word and just may misinterpreted this particular passage. Because I encouraged him to just read the whole book. Look at the theme of the book. This particular passage is talking about the superiority of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice, comparing him to Moses, comparing him to angels, comparing him to Melchizedek. And he's trying to express that Jesus is worth all the things that they were dealing with, but also trying to bring out how we are to worship him. It had nothing to do with a building. And I tried to express to them historically, because I'm a history major. And Alvin brought up something that just hit me, man, because he said we're operating under a European construct, which is a building. Like when you see all the cathedrals and all these grand buildings and the stained glass, that's all European. Our pulpits, how our church buildings even look now, even in the Church of Christ, they're Spanish, European, Catholic inspired, Protestant inspired things. It's not Church of Christ, right? We never had buildings. What did we do in the first century? We shared everything. No one had to have a building. If you didn't have, I gave it to you. If I had an ear of corn and you didn't, I gave you some of my corn, right? That's how they did everything. So, and they were running from the law. So you didn't have a chance to set up shop.
House to house.
And I try to explain to people about how history works as a student. History, it's a third account. So I'm going to miss some things, but I have to be aware enough in my studies to understand that I don't know and that I cannot place my current time in that time. They were not in America. They weren't running from Donald Trump and his rioters. They were running from Rome and Nero and those fools that were trying to kill him and throw him into the pit with the lions. Totally different situation. So when the Hebrew writer is saying, don't forsake the assembly, like Benny said, don't abandon Christ because it's tough, right? Don't leave the faith. And I was trying to explain that to the brother and he heard it. And so what I'm thankful for with this pandemic, it's forcing us to have these tough conversations. It's forcing us to deal with the scripture, because this is a brother who had been preaching just as long as I have, if not longer, who said, thank you for showing me that. I haven't looked at that. I'm still going to go down to the building, which is totally fine. He cleaned his building. They socially distanced. I don't have a problem with that either, because you also have people on the other side saying they were fools for going back to the building. That's not right either. But he understood, look, I didn't see it that way. Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm going to do better at looking at the entire historical context of passages. This made us stronger as a brotherhood. I know I can call that brother and say, hey, man, look at this and look at that. And he can call me and do the same thing without a pandemic, without being forced into this. Because before we were comfortable. And I think God allowed this thing to happen to bring us out of our comfortable, because I can sit here and preach and talk whatever I personally want to preach and push. But this pandemic has forced me to look at myself. Me and my wife talk about it all the time. We were forced to look at our marriage. We ain't going to work. She working in the garage. I'm working in the kitchen. We got to look at each other every day. Kids are in here in the other room. They doing their thing. They going wild. Thank God I can send my 3-year-old still to daycare. And so we have to look at each other, and some things have to be worked out, because I'm looking at her in her face. Same thing in the church. We have to really look at our dogmatism, because that was really the issue. We were so dogmatic about silly things, and now we had to really look at them and break the wall down to then see what spirit and truth really look like. Not just a saying, not just a cliche, but what does it really look like? And like Alvin said, it's, do you know God? And I think some people were really asking themselves, do I know God? And I even saw some people in the chat that said, I worship more now than I did when we were going to a building.
I had that same sentiment given to me as well. People telling me, "Listen, I'm looking at three, four, five different virtual worship services. I watch one, I go to the next one. Let me see what Crenshaw doing. Let me see what Metro doing. Okay, let me go over here. All right, I'm in California. Okay, but let me hop over here down below to Texas. Let me see what's going on. You know, it's all over the world. People have been able to get into the mindset of worship and get into, watching worship and hearing the word a lot more. Yeah, I think that it has definitely sparked something in the church when it could have put something out. It could have extinguished something, but it definitely sparked something. I want to let my other brother speak. If you have anything else you want to add to this.